Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's webinar, where we'll be looking at opportunities with Amazon. So I'm Esme Dixon. I'm an Employer Engagement Manager with the OA. I've been here for about 3 years now, and we're joined by Gemma, who will introduce herself shortly.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Esme. Evening, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. Really appreciate you giving up your evening to listen to me for a little while. My name is Gemma Jones, and I am the EU Ops Military Recruitment Manager for Amazon, basically with overall responsibility for military recruitment across the EU. I focus day to day on the UK and Spain, and currently also cover Poland and Germany, so it's a busy time. We are a small team. We will be 3 people by April, May. We are currently 2 people, myself and my colleague Jim Shaw, who covers France and Italy. I joined Amazon about almost a year ago. My 1-year anniversary is coming around really quickly, as the UK military recruiter straight from the Royal Navy. So it's been a bit of a baptism of fire. It's been crazy and a pretty great experience all round. If anybody has any specific questions about my own resettlement journey, I'm happy to go into detail, but I don't want to unnecessarily bore you with that. Much more interesting things to talk about this evening.
Thanks, Gemma. Just at this point, it's good to say that Gemma previously said that you can ask questions throughout. There'll be sort of natural pauses towards the end of the slide, so don't feel like you have to save all questions until the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gemma, over to you.
So I've got a few slides just to keep us on track as we go through and talk about Amazon. And the beginning, just want to talk a bit about Amazon. Obviously, everybody knows what Amazon is and what it does. This is where it started. This on the left-hand side, that is Jeff Bezos' parents' house in Seattle, where he started the business selling books from their garage. He left Wall Street as an investment banker to do so. The top right-hand corner is one of the first fulfillment centers, and you can see the books on the trolleys and the rolls of paper. It is far more advanced these days. When you go into an Amazon fulfillment center, the tech is unbelievable. But that's what it started as. And the bottom right-hand corner is the very first website. Interestingly, when they first set up the company, every time there was a sale of a book, the bell would ring in the garage. And then after a couple of days, the bell was just on constantly, so we had to disconnect it. So that's quite a funny story. But that's where it all started 24, 25 years ago. And obviously we've come quite a long way since then. So this is where we are now. Amazon has a broad, diverse portfolio of interests and companies and subsidiaries as well. Obviously, I do focus mainly on operations, so delivery up at the top, so Amazon Logistics, Amazon Fresh, Prime Now, and then down at the bottom, Energy and Tech and Amazon Fulfillment. I'm in the operations bit, the customer fulfillment, customer shopping, that side of it. But we have interests in all of those different things on this wheel. It's a bit nuts really when you think about it. And if you look in the middle towards the left, you'll see Souq. That has actually been rebranded now. That is Amazon now in the Middle East. We bought out Souq, and now that's been rebranded as Amazon, which is really exciting. Just a side note, a former warrant officer in the army is now the regional director of the Middle East for Amazon. So see how far you can come in. I think he's been with Amazon for 8 or 9 years. It's pretty impressive. Next slide, please. Okay, this is how Amazon does it. This is the flywheel, and it's very straightforward. It continues spinning incredibly quickly, obviously, very, very fast. And then you have the customer experience that start there. So if you have a good customer experience, you're going to drive more traffic to your website. If you drive more traffic to your website, you're going to attract more sellers. If you attract more sellers to your website, you'll have a broader selection. If you have more selection, you have a better customer experience. More customer experience, more traffic, more sellers, etc., etc. And it spins like that. And obviously, as it spins and you grow, you can have a lower cost structure, which in turn means lower prices, which in turn means a better customer experience, more traffic, more sellers, and so on and so forth. It's actually a really, really simple business model, and it works incredibly well. When you think about the selection, I'm not going to ask all of you what's your most random purchase from Amazon, don't want to embarrass anybody, but my most random, I'll embarrass myself, my most random purchase is a packet of IKEA meatball sauce. And it probably wasn't doing the environment much good to order one single individual sachet from Amazon to be delivered to my house. But it was free with Prime, and I really wanted some. So there we go. That's been my most random purchase. But I think you can pretty much get everything you want these days. And Amazon is branching out into delivering televisions and also installing them and other white goods. And I think we're going to see some crazy ideas coming down the pipeline over the next sort of 5-10 years. It's going to be one to watch. And this is the backbone of the company. So that's the business model and how it operates. This is the day-to-day function, how the people inside the business do their business, the leadership principles. And they are actually on the wall of every building, but they're also taken very seriously. And the people who work for Amazon really embrace them. And they also are the backbone of the interview process as well. There are 14 leadership principles. Some the military do better than others. Some we are better at, some we are not so good at, and we need to learn. But that's okay. So let's start at the top. Customer obsession, arguably the most important one. It is what it says on the tin. We obsess over our customers. We do pay attention to our competitors, but we obsess over our customers. Think big. Again, that's a reasonably self-explanatory one. If you think small, your actions will be small. We think big, and therefore our actions are scaled. And we do that every day in day-to-day Amazonian life, thinking about how you can scale your idea, how can you make it bigger, how you're going to be able to do it with the limited resources that you've got, all those sorts of questions. Hire and develop the best. Well, that's a good one. That's what I do. We hire and we develop the best. So we have a very robust interview process, and then we have great training programs once you're in the company as well. Earn trust is one that the military do really well, and one of the reasons why we look at this talent pool. It is about building trust between teams, with your team, with other teams, up and down, 360. It's a really important one. Dive deep. So root causing problems, using metrics and data to really understand the cause of issues and other information and data as well. Probably not the strongest for military candidates, but we do see this to be coachable at certain levels in the company. If you come in, for example, as an area manager, which is our main entry point, we do see this as a coachable leadership principle. Have backbone, disagree, and commit. It's one of my favorites, and I think it's a tricky one for the military. I think we don't spend a lot of time, I say we, obviously I'm not in there anymore, but we don't spend a lot of time in the Navy, or when I was in the Navy, actively disagreeing with people, especially people more senior. I think in Amazon it's perfectly okay to do that. It's perfectly okay to say, actually, I disagree for these reasons, and as long as you have a good logical reason behind you, that's encouraged. Disagree and commit. And the idea is that after you've disagreed, you then commit to the overall decision in the meeting. And it works both ways, up and down the chain. It doesn't necessarily always have to be the more junior person agreeing with the more senior person. It can also work the other way around, which I really like about it. Invent and simplify, that speaks for itself, and one that military are very good at, as is insist on the highest standards. Are right a lot is a really interesting one, because although it means that leaders at Amazon are right a lot, it also means that they're not afraid to say when they're wrong, not afraid to put their hand up and say, actually, that decision I made last week, that was not the right decision. I think now with this new information, we need to go in this direction. And that's okay to say that as well. Learn and be curious, I think that's very self-explanatory. Ownership is a really good one. It's one of my favorite ones, actually. Not having that walk on by attitude. Ownership. Everybody's an owner in Amazon, and even if there's a problem, it's a problem that you see and you identify and it's not in your particular department or not in your part of ship, you should still actively try and fix it. Take it on, go and speak to the person. You don't just walk on by. A really, really important one, and it's one of my favorites. Frugality. I think that's pretty obvious. We do spend money, but we don't spend it when we don't need to. Deliver results. And bias for action, two are the strong ones for the military candidates. They tend to do very well in interview with those leadership principles. So that's just in a nutshell. There's lots of information out there on the internet on the leadership principles. Loads of people have written about them. There's commentaries on interviewing with them. So please dive deep and have a look at those if you are thinking about applying to Amazon.
So Gemma, we've just had a couple of people ask similar questions actually, but they're saying that all organisations sort of have leadership principles or something similar, which they all claim, all their employees strive to be like. Do you actually feel that these principles are fully appreciated and actioned within Amazon?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Some people will quote them at the bottom of emails, which I'm not so much of a fan of. But yes, it is absolutely. It is in everything that we do, and it really does. So I wrote an email just today questioning a process within extended onboarding because it wasn't giving a particularly good candidate experience, which is, in my case, is my customer. And so we're always thinking about that, thinking about ways that the recruitment process can be streamlined for the candidate to make it a better experience for them. Even with my events that I'm running at the moment around the UK and the EU, we're thinking about how can I scale those without adding headcount to my team, and we're thinking about think big on that. Have backbone, disagree, and commit. Pretty much in every meeting I've been in, this has been people exercise this leadership principle, and nobody gets offended or upset. There's nobody. It's not personal. Any disagreement, it's very professional and kept like that in the meetings, and I really like that as well. People aren't afraid to disagree with a colleague that sits next to them because it's professional relationship. And the learn and be curious, absolutely, ownership, 100%. It's incredible how much they are embraced. It really is. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. It's really phenomenal. I think you'll get that from any Amazonian that you speak to.
Great, thank you.
That's all right.
So on to your current opportunities.
Yes. So obviously that's Jeff Bezos and some random American on the left hand, the other American, very senior person on the left. I don't know what 4 stars means, but is it a general or a brigadier or somebody? So there should be a topper for that slide, Esme, if you click again. There we go. 25,000 veterans was the promise 3 years ago in the White House that Jeff Bezos made as part of a pledge with the Obamas to hire 25,000 veterans within 5 years. That was the pledge. I think we've surpassed it, to be honest. The US does hire an awful lot, but 200,000 people leave the US military every year. So they have a massive pool over there of very talented people. So yeah, it's in the EU. We obviously focus very heavily on it as well, but we don't hire from the military. It's not really through any corporate social responsibility. We do have CSR programs, of course we do, but that's not why we hire veterans and military. We hire them for the skill set they can bring, for that leadership, that management, being able to think big, fix problems, think on their feet, coach and mentor and develop their team. All of those skills that they've developed within their 5, 10, 15, 20-year military career is what we want. And the finer points of how to be an area manager, an ops manager, we'll teach that. We have a very, very robust training package that everybody goes on, which I think what makes Amazon unique in the veteran employment market, that it's not day one, there you go into the company, crack on. It is day one, here's the start of your 6-week training package. Which I think is terrific, and it puts everybody on the same footing starting off, because in that training you'll be sat next to somebody from Aldi, somebody from Tesco, maybe a graduate, maybe one of the brand new general managers or senior ops managers. Everybody's going to go through the same training to begin with. So I think that's really great. So that's the pledge, and I think even once we've got past it, which I think we probably already have, we'll keep going because it's such a good talent pool. You can't walk into an Amazon fulfillment center or delivery station in the UK without tripping over half a dozen veterans. You really can't. For example, Newcastle delivery station, that's very tri-service. The delivery station manager is an ex-army officer, and he had all 3 of his area managers were ex-military, a mixture of RAF and Army, and his delivery resource manager is ex-Navy. The same over in Haydock, over towards Manchester, tri-service there, and in Kegworth, that's pretty tri-service too. Everywhere, I would say every station and every building across the UK has veterans in it. So we are probably surpassed that 25,000, but we'll keep on going.
Great, and we've had a couple of questions come through already.
Go for it.
Firstly, what is veteran retention like, especially in the UK?
In the UK, it's pretty good, I think. In the UK, people do leave, of course they do, and it's never going to be everybody's forever job, and nor should it be if you know, that's not the way the civilian world works anyway. We have had some people, like we've got Leah and Shaw, that came, left, went to Tesco or Marks and Spencer, I think it might have been Marks and Spencer, and then came back. And some people that come for a couple of years and then move on. So it really is dependent on the individual. But from the people that I see around Amazon, the retention is very, very good, and the promotion prospects are great. And I think that's one of the important factors. I couldn't speak to the US, and across the rest of the EU, I think we do pretty well as well with retention for veterans. It is something that we're working on as well to try and see if we can improve it, like we do with everything we do in Amazon. There's always ways to improve it, by having more mentors, by really investing time in like a proper mentor program between veterans. We have the Warrior Network, which is our internal affinity group, which is fantastic and great support. In fact, somebody asked me, a friend of mine in the Royal Navy, she asked me if I missed the Navy. And I said, how could I possibly miss it when I'm surrounded by it at work? I mean, yes, phone interviews and whatnot and dealing with candidates, but also with other Amazonians. And we all talk on our internal comm system. It's a really great network of support. So I think I don't exactly know what the rate is, the attrition rate. I don't have specific data on it, but from my experience, it's pretty good. And I see lots of senior ops managers, general managers, ops managers, and people moving up through the levels. So they are staying. But again, there's other options out there. If you've got your time under your belt at Amazon, got some commercial experience, the future is yours to do what you want with, really.
Oh, great. And just tying to that, so I know we've sort of talked about the ops and logistics quite a lot already, but somebody's asked if you're primarily looking for people with specific military logistics experience, or if you would sort of consider people who don't have that direct experience.
We essentially flip it, we don't care. I'm not really that bothered what your background in the military is. I have just hired a police officer who hasn't touched logistics in his life into the same role as an area manager up in the northeast. It really doesn't matter. It's the natural skills that you've developed at that time in the military, whether you're a chef, or you're in logistics, or you're not, or you're in engineering, or you're in health and safety, or whatever it is that you've been doing, driving warships, whatever it is. It's very readily transferable because it's the general skill set as opposed to the specifics. We do have jobs for specific skill sets, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I will look at any candidate from any military background.
Okay, great. So we're being sort of inundated by questions, which is great that you guys have so much to ask. But I don't want to take too much away from your actual slides, Gemma. So we won't touch on these questions yet, just in case you do go on to cover them. Just a last quick one on this would be, what are opportunities like for people who aren't or haven't currently served in the British military, but maybe being commissioned abroad or with another country's military? Do they have the same opportunities as UK veterans?
Yes, absolutely. We hire people from old militaries. There's no problem. The only issue is visas and right to work. If you have that, then that's not a problem. If you don't, that can cause some issues because we have to follow the process laid out by the government in terms of the resident labour market test. And so that can cause some sticking points with people like from outside the EU. But we certainly have in the past.
Lovely. Okay, right, on to your next slide. Sorry, operations.
Yeah. So these start with operations, the main roles. So we start with an operations supervisor. This does not require a degree, just a GCSE Maths and English or equivalent. And you are running small teams and working and reporting into the area manager. It's a great starting point. I think we hire all ranks into this one. I've had a warrant officer start in this job, equally corporals, privates, and the equivalent across the three services. It's a great starting point. It's a great place to learn from, and there is scope for progression up to area manager, even if you join without the degree, which the area manager requires. You can progress up without the degree internally. So that's a good starting point. The next one is the area manager. This is the main role which I hire most people into. It is our main managerial position where you have a large team up to 100, 150 people on the shop floor that you are managing. You also have the process that you are looking at and you are trying to refine and streamline, make improvements on. You'll likely be running a couple of projects and everything that will go along with a team of 100 people. If you just think about that, you're going to have interviewing, you're going to have probably people that want to get promoted, and you're trying to coach and mentor them. Likely going to be some HR things to deal with as well with such a large team. It's a really cool job because it's just got a bit of everything in it. It slightly differs between buildings, what exactly that looks like, because an area manager in a delivery station has a slightly different job than an area manager in a fulfillment center. The two are interchangeable, and if you want to move sideways from one to the other, you can quite easily. But day to day, the job looks a little bit different just because of the size of the building and the scope of the work. But both equally valid places to start. We do have, and I'm not going to dwell on this too much because I think it can get really confusing. We do have a more junior area manager level and a more senior area manager level. Most people, when they interview, I interview everybody against the most senior position. Occasionally, just due to sometimes interview experience, they can come out the other end in the more junior position, and that's the offer they'll get. It generally means that you'll potentially get a smaller section of the building, there won't be as many projects. In a slightly different role in a delivery station, but the progression back up again is quite swift. I'm not going to go into the minutiae on that because I think it's confusing to people outside of the company. And then ops manager, next step up. The fastest I've seen somebody go from area manager to ops manager is 12 months. His name is Cash. You can find him on LinkedIn. He's very cool and he's gone very quickly. He's ex-army. Ops manager, we hire people in directly. We do. I don't like to pigeonhole according to rank. I really don't. But my experience of the last year has led me to say that the vast majority of our ops managers are lieutenant commanders, majors, and above. Simply because the scope of the interview and the depth of answers they're looking for really only aligns with jobs people have had at those levels of seniority in the military. Other people more junior just don't have the same answers and the same scope of examples to give. And so we're looking for those executive officers of warships, commanding officers. We're looking for people that have worked in sort of PGHQs and modern main buildings, Abbey Woods, the sort of more strategic roles, that sort of thing. We do hire people in directly into this role and from the military quite successfully. Quite a few this year, actually, so it's really exciting. And we were a senior ops manager, weren't we? Okay, so senior ops manager, we don't tend to hire a great deal of these externally. We do advertise them, but without any commercial experience, it's really hard to come in cold from the military into that role. I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. I'd rather somebody is set up for success and comes in at the ops manager level and comes in at the senior ops manager. And overall, that is the pathway up. And past senior ops, you've got general manager, which is director level, which is really cool. And that's sort of the top of that sort of path, if you will. That area manager, ops manager, senior ops, general manager is the path of Pathways as well. So I'm going to talk about Pathways for a minute. Pathways is our accelerated leadership program. Basically takes you from area manager to general manager within about 5 or 6 years, give or take. It's a fantastic program. We've just had a whole cohort of military pathways start yesterday, which is really exciting for 2020. We do look for a very specific skill set, a specific type of person that has that growth potential to very, very quickly learn, develop, grow into that general manager in a very short space of time. We interview for that the year before the role starts. So for Pathways for 2020 for the UK, pretty much full. I do have availability in Germany still, but for the UK, we're pretty much done. The next set of interviews for 2021 will start in September of this year. Anybody that's leaving the military towards the end of this year or next year and thinks they are a good fit for Pathways, then September is the time to apply in, because that's when you get a better choice of location. Earlier you get in, you get to first pick. And once those roles are gone, they're gone. They're live, and you're not competing with MBA graduates, but they're also being offered to MBA graduates. That's the main bulk go to people graduating from London Business School, Manchester Business School, and all the other top business schools of the EU. And then we also look at military at the same time. And it's not a race to see who can get there first, but I'm interviewing, they're interviewing. When the role is gone, it's gone. And we have great success with that. We have a regional director that came up through Pathways. We have a general manager up in Scotland that came through Pathways. And we've got people coming up with delivery station managers that came through Pathways. It's a really cool program. And so I will be restarting interviewing in September for 2021. You do need a degree for that one too.
Lovely.
Any questions on that?
I think most have pretty much been answered. It was just whether you thought there was sort of a typical career pathway or a career route for a former officer, but I think pretty much being covered in this slide. I know you're to talk about it anyway.
I would say that some people do tend, when they get to, if you're not on Pathways, some people when they get to ops manager tend to move sideways a little bit. So they'll move sideways in and out of some program manager roles before they'll move back up again. But that tends to happen. I can see that happening with people at the moment. They move out of ops into a side program manager, still in ops, but not in the core field ops role. And then they maybe move back in again as a senior ops or move out again. But yeah, so there's lots of flexibility when you're in the company.
Okay. So onto engineering.
Engineering, yes. This is a big push in 2020. Some of you may have seen our assessment day advertised, which is really exciting. So for maintenance tech and senior tech, again, we don't pigeonhole according to rank, but generally speaking, it suits hands-on engineers. So people have got, so for senior tech, hands-on, but also some managerial experience, and maintenance tech, most definitely hands-on. We are running assessment days for those two roles continuously throughout the year. So from the next one is on the 17th of Feb, then we've got the 9th of April, then I want the 25th of June, I need to double check that. And there's adverts on the Amazon.jobs, and if you are in that grouping, then you just pop your CV in, have a phone call with the recruiter. They'll decide, whether you're going to be a senior tech, a maintenance tech, or what date is suitable for you to go to the assessment day, and they'll put you through for that. And it's essentially you go and you do your interview in one of our sites. You must be within 6 months of your TX date when you go to the panel, when you go to the assessment day. But that's all have already left the military. So that's a really cool program that we're going to be running this year in the UK, France, and Germany. And then our area manager, engineering manager, that tends to be obviously a bit more senior, a bit more experience in management, maybe looking at senior NCOs for maintenance area manager or junior officers. And then for the engineering manager, most definitely a decent engineering experience, a degree required, and more than likely either senior NCO or an officer who's in that field. But we do hire a lot of military engineers as well, especially in the UK. Really good.
And Gemma, do you think there's an advantage to being a chartered engineer? Would that help you sort of excel through this program?
If you were a chartered engineer, I'd be thinking you probably come in as an engineering manager in the first instance. We also do have other engineering roles that sit within program management, and we've had some success recently hiring them. They're not roles that I actively get involved with hiring, but if you apply to them with a suitable and you will reflect the job description and you've got that experience, they will absolutely look at you. All of ops talent acquisition in the EU is very military friendly. That doesn't mean to say that dropping your CV into any random job will get you through, but if you meet the criteria, they're all well versed in military CVs. They all get training on military CVs, and they won't discount you. But you must meet at least some of the minimum criteria on the job advert. We've just hired a couple of Royal engineers into project management roles within the corporate headquarters in London, and that's really cool. So they will look at you if you've got those skills, but it's not as high volume as this is within Amazon.
Thank you, that makes sense. Sorry, interrupting you again.
Okay. Okay, next slide. Health and safety. So this is an avenue that has been explored more this year as well. And you can see the different steps there. EHS coordinator, it's an entry-level role. Safety specialist is a good entry point, as is health and safety manager. We hired one into Swansea Fulfillment Centre, health and safety manager, late last year, which is really cool. And because of NEBOSH, a lot of people in the military get NEBOSH, and it's a really useful skill, it's a really useful qualification, and we like it. If you don't have NEBOSH, then some good health and safety experience is okay as well, but NEBOSH is very advantageous. So that's a really, and I think there's another hire up in the northeast within the health and safety manager bit also. I think we've actually rebranded it to be called Workplace Health and Safety. Must update my slide. But there's a career path there as well, regional health and safety manager, and obviously there probably are sideways options into sort of program management roles as well. But really, good option for anybody that's got that experience in the military.
Great. So a couple of people are asking about opportunities to travel with Amazon or global opportunities. What would be the best route if you were interested in traveling for jobs?
So if you want, so let's go back to these sort of ops roles. If you want to work in France and the rest of the EU, you must speak that language to at least B2 level. Okay, so you must be you must be able to converse in that language. As you get more senior, if you're a senior ops manager or a general manager, it's less important to be able to speak the language because all of your managers will speak English. So that's the one point. So there are options. So for example, at the moment, I have 2 colleagues in Japan. One was a senior ops manager called Matt Smith. He was really pro-military hiring, and he was around sort of North London area. And he's taken a job in Japan, doing a similar thing to what he did in the UK. And then there's a military pathways from Italy, who's taken a role in Japan as well. So those options do absolutely exist. It's easier to move when you're more senior, I would say. If you're more junior and you're trying to directly go for a job in another country, then visa issues will probably apply there too. And each country is unique in the way they deal with their requirements for visas and work sponsorship. That's just something to think about. Just for anybody that is maybe planning a trip to moving to Australia, Amazon is expanding in Australia at the moment, and there are options. I don't know the specifics, but I know that we are growing there, and that we have a team of recruiters there, and that they're holding military events out there. So that's something to potentially look at. It's not that I want to encourage everybody to go down under, but definitely something that you could consider. But moving internationally, a little bit easier when you're a bit more senior, or if you're in a niche role as well. But it is absolutely possible. A lot of internal jobs on the website offer international relocation for internal candidates. So it just depends on the job, what they're asking for, what they're looking for, and the rules of that particular country for sponsorship.
Okay, great. And yes, no, definitely, that really does. Back to sort of UK location, a really quick question is, where would people go to find these opportunities? Someone's asking if there's sort of a footprint map where you can see the different distribution centres and opportunities available.
Yeah, so if you go to amazon.jobs, which is our main jobs board, I'm pretty sure there's a little tab on there to look at current buildings and where they are. I haven't got it up in front of me right now, but I'm pretty sure there is. So we have in the UK over 100 buildings. They are a little bit, tend to be grouped together. So obviously Scotland, Glasgow and Edinburgh, there's 2 little groupings. And then you come down south and we've got the northeast, which is obviously a growth area for us. Doncaster's got 4 or 5 buildings in the one town. Then we've got Leeds, Sheffield. We go across to Manchester, we've got Chesterfield, and then 3 fulfillment centres and about 4 or 5 delivery stations around the Manchester area. Drop down south into the Midlands, and you got Birmingham is just 5 fulfillment centres, multiple other types of buildings like delivery stations, and then we've got Peterborough, Milton Keynes, that North London area, Dunstable. Lots of different fulfillment centres, sortation centres, delivery stations, all on the periphery of London. There are delivery stations. And then into the south, a little lighter on buildings in the south, as you potentially would imagine. Bristol has a nice little concentration of fulfillment centre, sortation, and then delivery stations dotted from Plymouth, Exeter, Bournemouth, Southampton, Portsmouth, and so on and so forth, Reading, Swindon. We have 46 delivery stations, 23 or 24 fulfillment centres, and 7 sortation centres in the UK. And that doesn't include the additional Prime Now, Fresh and Pantry that we also have around the UK, if that helps. But Amazon.jobs, yeah. I'm pretty sure there's a tab on there to look at the current buildings.
Great, thank you. So back to your presentation. Oh, so
there we go. And that, good timing. That's what it looks like. I mean, it works really well because we obviously on Belfast as well. That people that live in random parts of the country end up being able to work really close to home because there's a delivery station right there. Yes, I would say if you want to live in London, we don't have as much unless you happen to be in the peripheries of London. But yeah, it's pretty heaving in there with sites and new ones coming up, and new developments and new plans as well. We are growing. Okay. So this is a completely different idea, and I'm doing this brief on behalf of other people because it's not something that I am actively involved with, but it is something that I am actively helping with. The Delivery Service Partner Program. So when you get your parcel delivered to your door, whenever, I imagine it's delivered by usually a young gentleman delivering it in his own clothes, in whatever colour van. That is going to change. The drivers will be in uniforms. They will be in those snazzy van you can see in the picture, and they will be supported by Amazon. It will be your own company. You will be the owner of that company, and Amazon will just help you set up. They will help you get the insurance for your vans, help you acquire the vans, show you how to set up the business, fully supported. It's a really great program. These two here, one's called Jamie, one's called James. I don't know which is which. They're both ex-army, and they were part of the very first sort of the beta program for this. So it's a trial of this program. It is being rolled out nationwide across the UK and actually, the EU as a whole. For anybody that's a budding entrepreneur, this is a really good option. I understand it's really hard work because it's your own company, but Amazon is growing so quickly. I think there's a lot of potential here for this to be a really good way to go. These guys run Forge Logistics, and they set up their own business essentially. So this is what you do. You set up your business, select your drivers, deliver your parcels, and we will help you get you started, provide training, the tools and technology, and offer support and share our experience. So anybody that's interested in this, I think if you go to the next slide, there should be how to get to. There we go. Logistics.amazon.co.uk. And on that website, I do believe there is also a contact email. There it is, dsp@amazon.co.uk. If anybody has any questions. Equally, I will tell you all that you could all go and stalk on LinkedIn my colleague Oliver Flackett, who is part of this program. He's one of the program managers, ex-army, was an ops manager, now program manager in DSP 2.0. So it's a really great option if you have got that sort of drive and ambition to own your own company with Amazon support. There we go. Does anybody have any questions on DSP?
Don't have any coming through at the moment, okay. But
that's okay.
We'll have a thought later. Okay.
So this is the basic breakdown of operations. So fulfillment center, sortation center, delivery station. It's quite simple. It's very clever how it works. There's an algorithm in the background that will tell the computer which fulfillment center to get which element of the parcel from, or all the elements. Then they either meet up in the sortation center or send straight to the delivery station and straight to the customer. If anybody could hazard a guess at how many parcels go through the likes of Southampton delivery station every night, I'm not going to actually guess because nobody will be able to probably. But if you think back in the day, we used to use Royal Mail to deliver, or DPD, or any of the other delivery services. Now, every night through Southampton delivery station, you'll see about 30,000 parcels. That's just for Southampton, which is crazy. What are people buying? 30,000 parcels a night. So you can imagine.
We had someone guess 20,000. That was the closest. So
okay, that's pretty close. And in the larger stations, obviously, it's a lot more, which is crazy. I think if you think this is a real big growth area as well for Amazon delivery stations, so that we can reach the customers and get them their deliveries within the 1 day promised time. So that's a simple breakdown of the network. It's I think if you're available to come to our Kegworth our Kegworth fulfillment centre on the 12th of March. It's one of our newest fulfillment centres, and it's got high tech, it's got robots. It's really cool. I'm really excited about that one as well because I've not been to a robotics site since I was in Barcelona for my training. So definitely sign up for that one if you can come along. It's really cool. So this is the recruitment process.
Before we move on, just a really quick one. Do all levels of the management roles involve shift work?
Pretty much. Yeah, so when you get to, if you are a delivery station manager, then I'm not going to say you're on call 7 days a week, but you are the delivery station manager. So if something goes wrong in the middle of the night, you'll get a phone call. And so you're not on shift work technically in that job, you're Monday to Friday. Most of the area managers do 4 days a week, 4 10-hour shifts, or 4 10-hour nights as well, so day and night, and 3 days off. It changes in a delivery station. They have late shift as well, so there's a couple of different options, and especially in the larger delivery stations. Ops managers as well tend to keep in a fulfillment center the same shift pattern. Senior ops are day workers. They don't do nights. You do less of it as you get more senior, I guess. But people are put off by the idea of shift work. I think the terminology in itself has negative connotations. Also, night shift has negative connotations. Coming from speaking as a former warfare officer who stood up in the middle of the night for years on end on bridges, I don't really have a problem with nights. Arguably, you actually get more time off at home if you're on night shift. One of my recent hires last summer sent me an email and said he was on the back end as well. So he was doing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And he said he had never spent so much time with his family. So he couldn't believe it, how much time he spent with his kids, doing the school run, the pickups, his wife during the week. He said it's just immense. So don't discount or be put off by the idea of a shift, because it's essentially just a longer working day. It doesn't mean anything else. Then you get your 3 days off. So I think arguably, if you actually does anything in the evening when they get home from work at 7, 8 o'clock anyway, other than maybe make dinner and watch a bit of television. So if you can do that in 4 long days and have 3 full days off work, I actually think that's pretty great. But it is each person to decide whether or not that's for them or not. Hopefully that answers your question. But yes, shift work. Your shift doesn't change, by the way. That is a pattern you stay on, so it is just that until you move into a different type of role within the same building or a different building altogether. So the recruitment process is fairly straightforward. Starts with a phone interview with me. If I've met you at an event, sometimes I skip that bit, but that's with me. We go through the role, what to expect, different location preferences, timeline, a few questions from me to you based on the leadership principles, and you can ask me questions. The next step, depending on what role you're going for, so the hiring manager, this phone interview is only for ops manager roles, more senior positions, and even then there is talk of phasing this phone call out. And then you do your SHL, which is a numerical reasoning test, which is pretty hard, but don't be put off by it. It's not the most important element. If you are going for an ops manager or a pathways role, you also have to do the written exercise. If you're going for an area manager position, you don't. And then straight to panel. The panel is 4 interviews back to back. It's intense, I think, and it's robust, but it's a really interesting process. I think you learn a lot about yourself going for an Amazon interview panel. It requires a reasonable amount of preparation. People that try and cuff it on the day don't do well. And the interviewers will be from all walks of life in the business. Some senior, some area managers, ops managers, general managers, whatever. We have people come on our panels from all over the business at all different levels of seniority. Once you've finished the panel, if you've been successful, we try and tell you as quickly as we can. Then if we have the location nailed down and there's a job available, then we'll move to offer. Sometimes a hiring manager wants to have a quick chat on the phone to make sure you're happy with what the job is and just sort of introduce you to the team and say, hey, I'm the hiring manager, how's it going? But often they're just happy that they're getting a really good military candidate and we go straight to job offer. If you live in some random part of the country where there is only one delivery station, it's possible there's no jobs right there right now, in which case you'll sit on the bench. And that does happen, and people do sit on the bench. I have had a couple of candidates in Scotland sitting on the bench. for a little while and they've just all been offered jobs. But it's been a few months. And there's nothing we can do about that. We can't give you a job where one doesn't exist. But we will happily put you through the process with you understanding that you will sit on the bench. I always try and get people off the bench as quickly as possible, but it is something to consider. If you were in a really populous Amazon area like the Midlands or North London, that sort of Dunstable, Peterborough area, or Doncaster, then you're probably usually pretty secure that there'll be a job available. I hope that makes sense. And that's about 2 to 4 weeks through all of that. The fastest I've done it, probably phone interview to offer. Phone interview to start date was 4 weeks exactly, because he did the phone interview and then the panel the next week, offer the next day. 3 weeks later, he walked in the door. So that's probably been the quickest. But about 2 to 4 weeks for this, and then it takes 3 weeks for a background check. So that's
great.
So
we've been absolutely inundated with questions, just asking more detail, different elements here. So is there a website or somewhere on your website where people can go for further sort of recruitment advice, or what would you recommend people do to prepare?
There is. Again, I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon.jobs. You also get, when you apply to Amazon, you get stuff sent to you by the recruitment coordinator. They send bits and pieces. So if you're on Amazon.jobs and you scroll down, I'm pretty sure interviewing at Amazon, there it is in the help section at the bottom. Interviewing at Amazon is pretty much all there. Assessment, online application, phone interview, it says in-person interview, but ours are all done virtually because we have one every week and it's not sustainable to do that in person. So we do ours via Amazon Chime, which is a bit like Skype, essentially. So yeah, Amazon.jobs, go to the bottom, interviewing at Amazon. Also, if you just randomly Google Amazon interviews, Amazon leadership principles, there's so much out there on Glassdoor. There's articles, there's web pages, all dedicated to talking about interviewing at Amazon, how peculiar it is, what they're expecting. It's all about the leadership principles at the end of the day. It's all about the STAR format. It's all about using that STAR format and building the examples inside that framework to match in with the leadership principles that we use. But the recruitment process, it is fairly streamlined. I think it's pretty good. We try and make sure the candidate has a good experience no matter what the outcome, if that's possible. I know obviously it can be a bit of a letdown if you're not successful, but I hope everybody understands that we try and make it as smooth as possible for them. Was there another question, Esme?
I think I'm just conscious of time. So if we move on to your next slide, and then hopefully, I think the phone question will be answered anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So interviewing at Amazon, that's like this slide. It's just funny. We do want to know about your military experience, and often there'll be an ex-military person on your interview panel. Not always, but the ones that we have, the interviewers that we use are all experienced military interviewers. And if they're not, I make sure they get a full brief from me beforehand on what to expect. So we take it very seriously. They understand military candidates and what you're all about. Go to the next slide. So, slightly skew with that title, isn't it? So, how to prepare for an interview at Amazon. These are my personal recommendations. Directed thinking. When you sit down with a blank piece of paper to think about your examples from your 20-year career in the military, you will think probably about absolutely nothing. You need to look at your CV and break down your career and have directed thinking about each of those jobs. What did you do in that posting? What job did you do? What role did you have? What ops did you work on? What projects, exercises? Who did you work with? Those sorts of thoughts will get the examples flowing, and there'll be things you didn't even realize were examples. Things that you can actually, if you think about it and you break it down, you can actually make that into a really good example. You won't realize that until you break down each of your jobs that you've done. Amazon doesn't like general answers. Oh, I generally do this all the time at work. No, we don't like that. We want specific examples. So you have to dig deep into your history. The STAR format is very important. I've added that E on, which is my own addition. And the E, for those of you that have already guessed, stands for evaluate. So we get our results and then we evaluate on the end as well. Motivation for the role and for Amazon is really important. I know it's an obvious thing to say. It's a big company. I do my shopping here and I would dig deeper than that. Why do you really want to work at Amazon? What is it about the company? For me personally, it was about being in something that was almost the opposite of the military in many respects. The Navy is very abstract. When I used to say I was a Royal Naval officer, nobody really knew what that was. So it doesn't, even though the Royal Navy plays a very important function in society, it doesn't impact directly people's lives. And I really wanted to be part of something that did. And this was it for me. This input, what Amazon does makes my life, regardless of the fact that I work for the company, makes my life a little bit easier when I can order things for my kids or birthday presents. So I need to worry about trying to take a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old to the shops. It makes my life a little bit easier. And that's why I wanted to work at Amazon. I wanted to work for a company that impacted everybody's lives. So you need to think about that, and feel free to steal my idea. Quite all right. I won't tell anybody. But it's important to really understand that. What is your motivation? Because if you don't have motivation for the role, you won't do well in the interview. Because you won't have that drive to prepare for it. That's something to consider as well. And practice. Don't be a fool. Say things out loud. Practice on your partner, your spouse, your kids, your friends, your mobile phone, whatever. Practice going through your STAR technique before the interview. Don't let the first time you say it be in the interview. That will be bad. You'll trip over yourself. There'll be some people that are natural and get away with it, but for the vast majority of us out there, we need to practice. I practiced for weeks and weeks before my Amazon interview. Took it very, very seriously. I had papers all over the house, stuck to the walls. I wanted the job, and when you want the job, you got the motivation. You put in that effort. I think that's okay for that slide. Okay, so STAR E, we've gone through that: situation, task, action, result, evaluate. That's fine. We'll move on. And these are broken them down. I must apologize. I did throw this PowerPoint together quite quickly. I usually use Prezi, which is like a really fancy online presentation tool, but I can't use it through this webinar. So the situation: be concise, set the scene, avoid using military terminology, but feel free to use military examples. If you are trying to explain a complex military scenario to somebody with no experience in the military, practice explaining that. It's just the same as trying to explain an artillery battery to somebody, or 12 weeks of pre-deployment training in the Navy to somebody. You've got to think of a way to describe it so they understand the context, but you're not teaching them about the military. There's a fine line there. Task should be concise. Don't dwell on it. So the situation, the task are not the important bit. Some people get really drawn into the situation, like we're telling a massive story. No, move on. Action, result, evaluate are the 3 important elements here. So what did you do? What was your role? How did you do it? What challenges did you overcome? What challenges in the team did you have? All of those types of things. Lots of detail. Avoid using the word we. It's all about what you achieved in the role, in that project, in that operation. Results, what was the outcome? And when you say in the interview, it was successful, the interviewer is going to say, oh, great. How do you know it was successful? How do you measure your success? So you instantly want to avoid him or her asking that by getting him first. How do you know it was successful? How do you measure your success? Sometimes it's not possible, but definitely think about it, because in most cases it is somehow. Results should be tangible, quantifiable, and measurable wherever possible. And evaluate. What went well in the project, what didn't go so well, and why? What steps do you take to rectify the issues? What would you do differently next time, and why? So if there was something major that went wrong, did you try and fix it? Was there a policy change off the back of it? Were you part of that? If you weren't, why not? Did you try and influence people to change the way things were done off the back of what had gone wrong? Think about all those things. You can, to a certain extent, build a whole other example off the back of your first example. It's peeling the onion. Peel the onion. We want the detail. We want to know what you did, how you did it, and what your thought processes were. We want to understand why you chose one course of action over another. Really important. And that's it, really, in terms of interview tips. It is a robust interview. You do need to prepare. It's completely achievable. Lots of success with my candidates in this process. Anybody got any more questions?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Gemma. We've had lots and lots of questions come through. So before, we've got time literally just to ask a couple. But before then, what do you recommend people do if they want to get in contact with you or learn more? Obviously, quite a lot of people for you to sort of meet with. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, so obviously, I feel really bad saying this because I know that you're told to reach out and connect with people. I really don't have a lot of time in my diary for individual one-to-one chats or coffees or phone calls. I would show you my diary if I was allowed to, but that would obviously be breaking some sort of privacy rule, I'm sure. I have 4 countries, so it's really hard. So if you want to know more about the job, the day-to-day job of an area manager, of an ops manager, of a supervisor, my advice is to go directly to those people. So those are great guys out there. There's some terrific warriors out there in Amazon, Amazonians, they're ex-military that are more than happy to spend time talking to you. Google military and Amazon, or an army and Amazon in LinkedIn, and you'll have a whole host of people that will come up. Leverage that network. They are a great source, and they will interact with you and they will engage with you, I promise. Even if you reach out to general managers, they will also. Once you're ready to apply, once you are 2 to 3 months from your TX date, or you want pathways for the following year, whatever it may be, then go on to Amazon.jobs, search military UK, and all of my jobs will be on there, all of them. Apply to one. It's really, or come to an insight day, come to an event. As much as I would love to interact with everybody, I just simply don't have the time to do so. I really only need to hear from you when you're applying for the job. Other than that, if you want information on the job itself, go directly to the source. That's my advice on that one. If you have a real question about the process, I'm happy to field it, and I won't ignore you on LinkedIn. I will answer, but my preference would be that you do it this way.
Okay, and obviously Amazon are always representative at the CTP employment fair. So there's one in Salford next week for anyone who
I will be there.
Oh,
I am there. I will be there. I will be there. I think I'm presenting at that one, which is pretty much the same presentation I've done here today, except with people in front of me. This is really weird looking at my computer screen. So yeah, I am at every CTP fair. We are holding multiple events around the country. There's always something to come to see what we're all about. But yes, I think that pretty much covers that. If that answers your question. And I'm not trying to deflect onto other people or slope this work to my colleagues either, but this is the way it works best.
Thank you. So last question, we run out of time, but just this has come up a couple of times now, is people wondering whether moving around the UK to different Amazon locations would help to further their career or get them a promotion quicker, or do you expect people to sort of stay in the same role, the same location for 4-5 years before any progression?
Well, let me first say that if you are relocating for an Amazon role, we will most likely financially support that, depending on the distance that you're relocating. And if you relocate once you're already at Amazon and you're going from location to location, it's more than a certain distance, then you'll be supported financially with that also. I would say arguably, there's 2 ways to look at it. Yes, by moving, you're probably increasing your chances of moving quicker up the tree, because you see an open spot for an ops manager, it's 100 miles away, but you're happy to go for it, then you go for it. If you only want to stay in your one delivery station, then you got to wait for the person above you to move on. So I think it can be good to be flexible. Having said that, I know that the current regional director out in the Middle East, he spent pretty much his entire career in one fulfillment center, bar going to Coventry to launch it and coming back to Peterborough. He didn't move at all, really. He got from area manager to regional director by not moving. So you should look at it both ways. Yes, I think moving helps, but equally, if you don't want to and you're in a location that's got enough scope to promote, then you can stay where you are. Pathways generally tend to move because you need to keep your time frame going to get to general manager. They want you to go to where the next vacancy is, and if that's not where you physically are already located, then you will be encouraged to move sites. A bit like the military in that sense, I guess, except nobody will order you to do it. It's very much your own decision.
So I did say that was the last question, but there's one more. Someone being persistent, which is great. Sort of really keen to hear a bit more about the leadership principles. So would you expect a candidate to sort of repeat those, or throw those back at the interviewer, or is it more subtle, integrating it into the answers? Way more subtle than that. It's way more subtle. They're not going to say this is a question based on deliver results.
they'll just say, hey, tell me about a time when you did X, Y, and Z with limited resource, or when you had a tight time frame, or when they won't ask you, and you probably can't even, some of them you might not even be able to guess which leadership principle it is. The interviewer will know. But yeah, it's way more subtle than that. They're not going to expect you to regurgitate interview leadership principles at all. Although by the time you finish prepping, you will know them inside and out anyway. So, yeah.
Great. So, well, thank you, Gemma, so much for sharing your insights. It's been brilliant. I think just such an engaged audience as well has massively helped. So thank you, everybody, for all your questions.
Yeah, thank you.
A couple of people have asked sort of how they can engage with the OA or use the OA to get through to Amazon. So if you want to register with us, if you haven't done so already, they are our details. We've also got client.admin@officersassociation.org.uk. If you just send across your details to Victoria, then she will be in contact with you and get you signed up. Then you'll be able to access all the events and further webinars and things like that. Gemma, thank you again. It's been brilliant. I really recommend people getting along to the CTP fair next week as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I realised I may have been a bit cold on don't approach me ever. But just connect with me. That's absolutely fine. And you'll see what we're up to and what's going on. And if you do have any burning questions, please feel free to ask as well. I am very welcoming, I promise.
Right. Well, good night, everybody. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.